My parents, Linda and Mark, hadn't worked a real job in 2 decades. They lived off disability checks, maxed out credit cards, and a steady stream of manipulation. I spent my entire childhood working 2 jobs just to buy my own textbooks. But I escaped. I put myself through school and clawed my way into a 6-figure job in the cutthroat world of FinTech. I finally had the life I earned. Then they found out my salary, a shocking $300,000 a year. Instead of a phone call of congratulations, I got a text message demanding $$5,000 a month, plus a new Cadillac. They thought they had finally struck gold. They had no idea they were walking into the most elaborate trap I had ever built. I still remember the smell of that trailer park, damp earth, stale cigarette smoke, and the faint, permanent odor of disappointment. That was home. That was where Linda and Mark, my parents, taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. Never rely on anyone but yourself. My mother, Linda, was a visionary when it came to spending money she didn't have. She collected porcelain dolls and limited edition QVC jewelry. My father, Mark, was an expert in avoiding physical exertion. He'd spend 8 hours a day on the recliner, channel surfing between fishing shows and political commentary, occasionally rousing himself to argue with the cable company about a bill he hadn't paid. They were a team of professional consumers, masters of exploiting every loophole in the system, living in a constant cycle of debt and entitlement. I was their little workhorse. By the time I was 15, I was splitting my time between a shift at the local diner washing dishes and tutoring high schoolers just to cover the basics. Not luxuries, basics. Textbooks, bus fare, a winter coat that didn't have holes. When I tried to talk about college, they'd laugh. College? Don't get ideas above your station, Em. Who do you think you are, some kind of Rockefeller? Linda would say, polishing a grotesque crystal figurine. Mark would chime in. All that book learning makes you a boring little stiff, Em. Just stay here and keep this fridge stocked. That label, stiff, became my armor. I was disciplined, relentless, and driven by a singular purpose: escape. I took out student loans that terrified me, worked 3 jobs through university, and didn't see my parents for 3 years straight. When I finally graduated, I carried the weight of $$80,000 in debt, but I had a degree in finance, and most importantly, I had a one-way ticket out. 10 years later, I am Emily Hayes, Senior Portfolio Manager at a major FinTech firm in downtown Chicago. My minimalist high-rise condo, with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan, is the physical embodiment of my freedom. I have a robust 401k, a mortgage I can manage, and a credit score that sings. My annual income is a healthy 6 figures, hovering just under $$300,000. I built this life, every single penny, brick by excruciating brick. The only remaining thread to my past was a reluctant, biannual phone call. I kept them on an information diet. I'm doing well. My job is challenging. No, I can't lend you $$500 this month. I thought my compartmentalization was flawless. I was wrong. The leak happened a month ago. I had been rushing to file my quarterly investment disclosures for work and in my haste, accidentally auto-forwarded an attachment, a detailed tax form summary, to an old, abandoned email address that Mark, my father, still occasionally checked for scam mail. The document clearly showed my W-2 earnings. 2 days later, my phone blew up with texts not from them, but from my Aunt Carol, who lives 2 states away. Emily, please call your mother. She sounds very upset. She keeps talking about a new financial partnership you two need to discuss. Then came the text from Linda herself. You need to be home this weekend, Em. We have serious family business to handle. Don't try to ignore us. No hello. No how are you. Just a demand, based on a number they had discovered. The blood in my veins turned to ice. They hadn't called to congratulate me. They had called to claim their prize. The next Saturday, they showed up unannounced. They didn't even bother to call from the lobby of my building. They simply sweet-talked the elderly doorman, claiming to be the Hayeses, her loving parents, and took the elevator straight up to the 30th floor. When I opened the door, the contrast was jarring. Linda was wearing a faded velour tracksuit, and Mark had on a stained, old t-shirt from a defunct amusement park. They looked out of place against the sharp lines of my marble entryway. "Well, look at this, Mark," Linda announced, sweeping her hand dramatically across the immaculate living room. "She lives like a queen while her own flesh and blood struggles." "Sit down," I said, my voice flat, holding myself rigid. They didn't sit. They marched right up to my custom glass dining table, where Mark slapped the printout of my tax form summary down. The number, $298, $750, stared up at me. "We saw this, Emily," Mark began, his voice surprisingly firm. The firmness of a man who believes he's owed something. "And frankly, we are insulted. All this money, and you've been letting us barely scrape by." Linda took over, crossing her arms. "We figure we are owed reparations, Em. We raised you. We put a roof over your head. That's worth something. We've worked it out." She pulled out a crumpled, handwritten napkin. Her demands felt like a physical assault. $5,000 per month, deposited on the first, as a parental retainer fee. Full payoff of all current credit card debt, which I knew was over $$15,000. A down payment for a new Cadillac Escalade, because Linda deserves something nice for once. "We figure that's a fair return on our investment," Mark said with a smug grin. "You wouldn't have that big job without us, honey." That phrase, "return on our investment," snapped the last fragile thread of my tolerance. They hadn't invested, they had extracted. They had created a hostile environment that forced me to become financially independent just to survive their negligence. The drama was thick, and the impulse to scream no was overwhelming. But then a quiet, cold calculation settled in my mind. Shouting would only give them the fight they craved, the fuel for their victim narrative. I needed to build a cage. "I see your point," I said slowly, letting a veneer of conflict and fatigue show through. Linda and Mark immediately straightened up, their eyes glowing with victory. "A lifetime of support is worth something. But this is a lot of money. I need to know it's going to a good cause. Not just the usual." "The usual?" Linda bristled. "This is necessity. I'm willing to help you build a new future," I said, moving closer, speaking conspiratorially. "But I need to know you are ready to be responsible partners in this financial arrangement. If you're going to be living off this kind of money, you need to understand the value of work." I laid down my condition. It was surgical, aimed straight at the soft, lazy core of their identities. "Here's the deal. I will start the $$5,000 payments, but only after you complete a small trial period. Each of you must hold down a real, verifiable, physical job for 30 consecutive days. Not work-from-home scams. Real jobs. Linda, you work retail or food service. Mark, you work something physically demanding like a warehouse or construction gig. Minimum wage is fine. Just show me you can commit for 30 days. You get your first payment on day 31. They looked at me stunned. The idea of working for the money, even as a prerequisite, was an affront to their lifestyle. "Are you serious, Em? That's inhumane." Mark sputtered. "It's a 30-day commitment, Dad. For guaranteed income for life," I countered smoothly. "If you can't manage 30 days, then you can't manage a $$$5,000 budget, and the deal is off. Take it or leave it." After 20 minutes of loud, dramatic deliberation, including Linda tearfully accusing me of making her suffer for her health, they accepted. The lure of the Escalade and the guaranteed $$5,000 a month was too strong. They were confident they could fake it for a month. I spent the next 2 weeks watching the train wreck unfold with detached satisfaction. Linda lasted exactly 10 days at a Target checkout counter. Her dramatic flare-up happened when a customer complained about her constantly texting during scanning. Linda, incensed that a common customer would speak to her that way, screamed that she was only working this pitiful job to support her family, then dramatically walked out, leaving a half-scanned cart abandoned. Mark lasted 15 days at a local Amazon fulfillment center. His chronic bad back, which never prevented him from sitting on the recliner for hours, suddenly became debilitating under the pressure of lifting boxes. He called me personally, wheezing. "Emily, I could file a workers' comp claim, But I'd rather just take your money. This is barbaric. It's child abuse to force your father to lift things. I listened, perfectly polite, and told them I was sorry the experiment didn't work out. They drove back to Chicago 2 days later, furious and entitled. They didn't call. They simply showed up again, buzzing my intercom repeatedly until I finally let them in. They expected the deal to be renegotiated. They expected me to cave to their exhaustion and outrage. I had anticipated this final confrontation. I had spent the past month preparing, not emotionally, but strategically. This time I was ready. I arranged the meeting in my condo, but I wasn't alone. In the adjacent dining room, behind the partially open sliding door, my friend David, a paralegal, was sitting quietly with a folder, his phone set to record. When they entered, they immediately launched into a dual attack. "We told you those jobs were beneath us," Linda shrieked, throwing her purse onto the sofa. "Your cruel game is over, Emily. We need the money now. We have bills." "The 30 days are up, Em," Mark said, leaning in, trying to intimidate me. "You failed to support your family. You need to fix this. We want the full $$15,000 immediately for the cards, plus the first $$5,000 retainer." I waited until they were both fully invested in their demands, their faces red with self-pity and rage. Then, I stood up and walked to the dining table. I picked up a simple manila folder. "You're right, Mark. The 30 days are up," I said, my voice steady, ice cold. "And I did fail to support my family. I failed to support the version of family I wanted. But I didn't fail to support myself." I opened the folder. "Linda, Mark. Here is my final statement on your financial requests." I handed them 2 documents. They snatched them impatiently. Linda looked at hers and gasped. "What is this? A contract?" "It is a legally notarized letter of non-liability," I explained calmly. "It states that I, Emily Hayes, have no legal or financial obligation to assume or pay off any of your existing or future personal debt. It makes it clear that my name is not and will never be associated with your credit, your mortgage, or your health care." Mark threw his paper down. "This is ridiculous. We don't need a contract. We need money. This is our daughter, Linda. She's playing games." I ignored him, my eyes fixed on Linda. "You spoke about an investment you made in raising me. I agree. You invested nothing but neglect and contempt. I paid for my own education. I paid for my own dental care. I paid for my own escape." Then I delivered the second document. This is a formal letter of no contact. It states that, effective immediately, all communication between us ceases. Any calls, texts, or visits to my workplace or my home will be treated as harassment, and the police will be involved. The silence that followed was heavy, the moment the reality of their final loss hit them. Then the explosion. "UBH!" Linda screamed, her face contorted in a terrifying mask of fury. "You spoiled, selfish monster. We should have never let you leave. We should have taken that money for ourselves years ago." Mark stepped forward, his eyes burning with true venomous hatred. "You'll regret this, Em. You'll be sorry. We will tell everyone what a horrible, ungrateful daughter you are. We will ruin your reputation. You're nothing but a worthless, boring stiff." "I know you will, Mark," I said, meeting his gaze without flinching. I reached for my phone, which had been resting discreetly behind a vase on the console. I held it up. "You've been recorded," I stated simply. "The entire conversation, your demands, your threats, the emotional abuse, and that last lovely threat to ruin my reputation, it's all recorded. And David, my paralegal, is in the next room as a witness." I nodded toward the dining room. David emerged, folder in hand, looking serious. The color drained from their faces. The screaming stopped instantly. They understood the finality of what I had done. They hadn't just lost their money. They had lost their ability to control the narrative. If they tried to slander me, I had evidence of their true, avaricious nature. "Now," I said, walking to the front door and opening it wide, letting the cool, sterile air of the hallway rush in. "You are trespassing. You have 3 minutes to leave my home, or security will escort you out, and I will be filing a restraining order." They didn't waste time arguing. They snatched their papers and bolted out the door, The sound of Linda's desperate, panicked sobbing echoing down the hallway as the elevator doors closed. I stood there for a long time, the silence of my luxury condo finally feeling complete. I hadn't cried. I hadn't yelled. The revenge wasn't loud or dramatic. It was cold, calculated, and absolute. David put a hand on my shoulder. It's done, Em. You're free. The next day, I changed my phone number, registered a new professional email, and sent the edited audio recording, along with a brief, factual explanation of their demands, to Aunt Carol and a few other key relatives. I controlled the narrative before they could launch their smear campaign. Most of them were already tired of Linda and Mark's drama, and quickly sided with the successful daughter, who finally chose self-preservation. Linda and Mark are still living in their state of manufactured crisis, but now they do it alone. The Escalade remains a fantasy. The credit cards are still maxed out. I look out over the city every morning, watching the sun rise over the lake. The view isn't just a symbol of financial success. It's a monument to the boundaries I fought to build. My salary is mine. My life is mine. I escaped the trailer park, and with 3 calculated moves, I finally and permanently locked the door behind me. That truly is priceless.